There's something weirdly intimate about seeing someone first thing in the morning, before you've had your coffee, before your guard is up, before your brain's even fully booted. That's when I saw him. He was wiping down the espresso machine, sleeves rolled up, dark curls falling over his forehead, eyes narrowed in concentration. The moment I stepped into the cafe, he glanced up and smiled. Not just any smile either. One of those slow, deliberate ones that makes you think I know you, even if you don't know me yet. It stopped me cold. For a second, I just stood there like a total idiot, holding the door open as a gust of cold November air rushed in behind me. He didn't look away. "Hey," he said casually, voice low and smooth. "You look like a guy who needs a triple shot," I blinked. Yeah, you're not wrong." He nodded toward the register. "Come on up. I'll save your life." The place had changed. New furniture, softer lighting. But I'd been coming here off and on for 2 years. I knew the staff, and he wasn't one of them. As I stepped up to the counter, I glanced at the name tag on his apron. Luca. Of course it was something stupidly hot like Luca. "What's your name?" he asked, already reaching for a cup. "Evan," I said, trying to sound normal and not like my brain had gone static. He scribbled on the cup with a Sharpie and smirked. "Nice to meet you, Evan. You new around here?" That threw me. No, I live like 4 blocks away. I work nearby. I'm here pretty often, actually." "Huh," he said, that smirk growing. "Weird. I feel like I'd remember you." There was something in the way he said it, familiar, teasing, like a private joke between us that I didn't know I was part of. I watched him make my drink, everything moving in slow motion. His hands were quick, practiced. His forearms flexed just enough under the weight of the metal milk pitcher, and his jaw tensed slightly as he tamped the espresso. But what really got me was how familiar he looked. It was driving me insane. Not like celebrity familiar, not like maybe we matched on Tinder once familiar. More like we knew each other when we were younger, and something happened but we never talked about it familiar. When he handed me the cup, he leaned just slightly over the counter. "On the house today," I frowned. "Why?" He gave me that smile again, the one that felt like a secret. "Because you look like you're having a rough morning." And because I felt like it. I laughed nervously. "That easy to read, huh?" "No," he said, locking eyes with me. "You're just interesting to watch." I swear my pulse skipped. I muttered something like, "Thanks," and all but bolted. But as I left, I peeked at the side of the cup. There was a little smiley face next to my name, and beneath it, in sharp block letters, "See you tomorrow, Evan." I barely made it to work without spilling it all over myself. All day, I couldn't focus. I kept thinking about him, about his voice, that look in his eyes, the way my name sounded coming out of his mouth. But mostly, I kept trying to figure out where I knew him from. That night, I dug through my social media, old photos, friends of friends, high school yearbooks, nothing. And then the next morning, I went back. Of course I did. And that's when things started getting even weirder. I showed up earlier the next morning. Way earlier than I needed to. I told myself it was for the coffee, that I just wanted to beat the crowd. But I knew that was bullshit. Luca was already behind the counter when I walked in, like he'd been waiting. He glanced up, eyes lighting up instantly, and then said, "Evan, you came back." I snorted. "I said I would." "Yeah," he said, grabbing a cup. "But people say a lot of things." I didn't know how to respond to that. Something about the way he said it, soft, a little guarded, made it feel heavier than it should have. He got to work on my drink again, and I couldn't help but watch him. The cafe was quiet, just the hum of equipment and indie music playing low from the speakers. A few people sat with laptops, but it still felt like a private moment between us. "So?" I asked, leaning on the counter. "How long have you worked here?" He looked up briefly. "Since Monday." "No kidding, I knew you were new." He smirked. "Is that why you keep coming back? Or are you just into the coffee?" "Hard to say," I said, matching his tone. "The barista's kind of a flirt. he grinned. Only with regulars. The drink appeared in front of me like magic. He didn't write anything on the cup this time. Just looked at me, really looked, for a beat too long. You seem familiar, I said quietly, finally saying what I'd been thinking since yesterday. His head tilted. You sure we haven't met before? I don't know, I said. Maybe. Did you grow up around here? Luca leaned on the counter, his forearms resting casually as he studied me. Nah, I moved around a lot, but I've been in the city for a while. I squinted. Did you ever go to Ridgeview summer camp? His expression didn't change, but there was a flicker in his eyes. No, he said after a beat. Never did the summer camp thing. I nodded slowly, though something about the way he said it made my gut twist. But I let it go. I still think I know you from somewhere, I said, sipping the coffee. It's gonna drive me crazy. He just smiled again, tight-lipped this time, and said, maybe that's the point. I left feeling more confused than ever. That night, I was sitting on the couch, half watching TV, when I remembered something. It hit me like a punch to the chest. I opened Facebook and typed in Luca. Nothing. But then I typed a different name, Lucas Mendez, and scrolled through the results until I found an old photo from middle school. 8th grade, a group shot on a field trip. In the second row, standing awkwardly next to me, was a boy with shaggy dark hair, a hoodie too big for him, and braces. Lucas. Holy shit. He had been the quiet kid, the one everyone sort of overlooked. We'd been friends, sort of. Played video games at lunch a few times. I think we even partnered up for a science project once. And one day, he just stopped coming to school. I never knew why. Never really thought about it, to be honest. But now that quiet kid was standing behind a coffee counter, watching me like he knew exactly what he was doing. The next morning, I went in again. Of course I did. The next morning, I didn't just walk into the cafe. I stormed in like a man on a mission. My brain had been spinning all night, turning over memories I didn't know I still had. I had to know if I was right. Luca was there, as usual. This time he was wiping down the pastry case, but he straightened the moment he saw me. His smile faltered, just barely, like he knew I'd figured it out. Morning, he said. Voice still smooth, but cautious now. You lied, I said, skipping pleasantries. The other barista behind the counter, a guy with a man bun and a nose ring, looked between us and wisely stepped into the back. Lucas sighed, pulled off his apron, and gestured toward a corner table. Come on. We sat in silence for a minute, my coffee forgotten between us. So I said finally, Lucas Mendez, he winced. Haven't heard that name in a long time. That's you, though, from middle school. We were in Ms. Denby's science class. You helped me build that dumb volcano that exploded all over the gym floor. He smiled at that, just for a second. Yeah, you blamed me for that. It was your baking soda ratio that ruined it. He shrugged. Still worth it. That janitor slipped and took out 2 folding chairs. I laughed in spite of myself. But seriously, why'd you say no when I asked if we'd met? Luca's face got quiet again. He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his hands together slowly, like he was warming them. Because I wasn't sure if you'd remember me. And honestly, I didn't know if I wanted you to. That threw me. I'm not mad, I said after a moment. Why now? You disappeared back then. You were just gone one day. My mom moved us out fast, he said. One of those situations where she packed the car and we were gone before breakfast. I didn't get to say goodbye to anyone. Not that anyone really noticed. I noticed, I said, quieter than I meant to. He looked at me, surprised. You did? I nodded. You were the only kid I liked talking to. Everyone else was obsessed with football or fighting or being cool. You were different. You listened. Lucas smiled, but this time it didn't reach his eyes. Yeah, that didn't exactly work in my favor back then. I wanted to say something comforting, something that didn't sound like a cliche, but before I could, he leaned forward. You're still cute, you know, he said, his voice low. I blinked. What? He smiled again. A real one this time. I had a crush on you back then. It was stupid, obviously. You were this funny, smart, nice kid who always smelled like apple-scented hand sanitizer. And I was... me. I shook my head slowly, processing. You had a crush on me? Had? He echoed. Past tense. But the way he looked at me said otherwise. My heart was beating way too fast for 9 in the morning. I think you're lying again, I said, a little breathless. He tilted his head. About what? That past tense part. His tongue ran across the inside of his cheek like he was trying not to grin. You gonna call me out every time I flirt with you? I smiled back. Only if you keep pretending like I don't enjoy it. We sat there for a few seconds, something between us clicking into place that had been suspended in time since we were kids. So, he said finally, drumming his fingers on the table. You free after work? That made my chest tighten in a good way. Yeah, I said. I am. Good, he said. I want to show you something. I spent the entire workday in a haze. I couldn't focus. Every spreadsheet blurred. Every email went unread. My brain was stuck in that cafe corner, stuck on the way Luca had said, I want to show you something. I didn't know what that meant. Or maybe I did, and just didn't want to get ahead of myself. At exactly 5:17, I was outside the cafe again, heart thudding like an idiot teenager. Luca was waiting. No apron this time, just jeans, a black hoodie, and that same casual confidence that made everything feel 10 degrees warmer around him. Hey, he said, slipping his phone into his back pocket. You made it. Barely, I said. You know I got nothing done today because of you? He smirked. You're welcome. We walked for a while. It was cool out, the kind of crisp November air that made your hands feel naked if they weren't shoved into your pockets. He didn't say where we were going, just kept leading me through side streets and quieter blocks like he had a destination in mind. You still live around here? I asked. Not far, he said. I rent a room near the park, kinda temporary. I bounce around a lot. I nodded. That sounds exhausting. He shrugged. You get used to not settling. I didn't know what to say to that, so I didn't say anything. Eventually, we reached a tiny bookstore tucked between a laundromat and a vape shop. The windows were fogged over, and the open sign was crooked. It didn't look like much. Luca pulled the door open and gestured inside. Come on! The warmth hit instantly, along with the smell of old pages and that weird, nostalgic vanilla paper scent only real bookstores have. The place was empty, except for a girl behind the counter with bright green hair and a nose ring. She gave Luca a lazy wave. Hey, trouble, he flashed her a grin. Hey, Z. This is Evan. She barely looked up. Good luck, Evan, I frowned. Wait, luck for what? Luca ignored me and led me to the back, past shelves of battered paperbacks and local zines. He finally stopped in front of a tiny alcove with beanbags and a flickering string of fairy lights. It looked like a kid's reading corner that never grew up. He sat down without asking and gestured for me to join him. Okay, I said, sinking into a beanbag with a groan. You brought me here for... What? Story time? He chuckled. No. I used to come here when I was a kid. After school, it was the only place I felt normal. I looked around. It's got that vibe. He glanced at me, something softer in his expression now. When we were in 8th grade, you were the first person who ever made me feel like I wasn't a freak. I blinked, caught off guard. I was? You were funny. Kind. You didn't call me names or pretend I didn't exist. You talked to me like I mattered. I think about that more than I probably should. I stared at him. Luca, you mattered. You still do. He looked away quickly like he wasn't used to hearing that. The silence stretched. Can I ask you something? I said. Yeah? Did you plan this? Like, working at the cafe, hoping I'd come in? His lips curved, just slightly. Maybe. That's a yes. I remembered you the second I saw you walk in, he said. You looked different, older, but I knew it was you. I almost said something that first day, but I don't know, I chickened out. You? Mr. Flirty Barista? He laughed. Yeah, well, you were always good at making me nervous. I felt something twist in my chest at that. Luca stood up and reached a hand toward me. Come on, let's go somewhere with less children's beanbags. I grabbed his hand and he pulled me up a little too fast. We ended up way too close. Like inches away, eyes locked close. Neither of us moved. It was the kind of moment you could ruin with too many words. So we just stood there, breathing the same warm bookstore air. He was the one who finally pulled back. Let's walk, he said. I'm not done with you yet. We didn't talk much as we walked. The sun had dipped behind the buildings, casting everything in that soft blue haze right before full dark. Streetlights flicked on one by one and our footsteps echoed in the quiet. There was something electric in the silence between us. Not awkward, just charged. Like we both knew what this was turning into, but were too caught up in it to rush it. He stopped at a crosswalk and looked over at me. You hungry? Starving. Good, he said. There's a place I go to when I want to eat and not talk to anyone. I smirked. But you're bringing me. Yeah, well, you're the exception. The place was a tiny hole-in-the-wall diner I'd never noticed, tucked between a dry cleaner and a locksmith. Inside, it smelled like melted cheese and hash browns. A waitress who looked like she'd been working there since the Sigil 80s waved him over. Back booth, sweetheart, she called. I'll bring you the usual. He nodded and led me to the booth in the corner. The vinyl was cracked and duct-taped, and the table wobbled if you leaned on it too hard. It was perfect. He slid in across from me and propped his chin on his hand, studying me again. So what happened to you after 8th grade? You kind of disappeared too. I shrugged. Nothing dramatic. I just got quieter. High school wasn't great. College was better. Are you out now? He asked it gently. Like he already knew the answer, but wanted to give me the space to say it. Yeah, I said. Have been since sophomore year. What about you? Oh, I exploded out of the closet, he said, grinning. Rainbow everything. Brief, only wears black phase. Got a nose ring for a week. Took it out because it caught on my hoodie string and nearly ripped off my face. I laughed. I never would have guessed. He tilted his head. What? That I'm dramatic? That you used to be the shyest kid in the room. His smile faded a little, turning thoughtful. People change when they have to. Before I could say anything, the food arrived. Greasy, glorious diner food. Burgers, fries, milkshakes, thick enough to bend a spoon. We ate and talked and didn't rush. We shared fries without thinking about it, laughed too hard at dumb stories, and made fun of the couple in the booth behind us, who were clearly on the most awkward first date of all time. I couldn't stop watching the way he moved. His hands, the way he talked with them. His expression so alive and unfiltered. He was nothing like the quiet kid I remembered. But he also kind of was, just freer now. Eventually the check came and we argued over it until the waitress rolled her eyes and split it for us. Outside it was fully dark and a little colder. He pulled his hoodie tighter and glanced at me. You want to keep walking? He asked. Yeah, I said, but it's getting late. He hesitated, then said, want to come back to mine? Just to hang out, talk more. My stomach flipped a little. Yeah, I said again. Quieter this time. We didn't say much on the walk. He lived in a basement unit a few blocks away, down a narrow stairwell behind a laundry room. It was small. One room, a mattress on the floor, posters tacked up crookedly, a desk with architectural sketches scattered across it. He kicked off his shoes and flopped onto the mattress, patting the space next to him. Make yourself at home. I sat down, not sure what to do with my hands. Luca propped himself on one elbow, looking at me with that same unreadable expression. You know, he said, I used to think I imagined you. Like, maybe I'd built up this memory of the nice kid from middle school, made you out to be something better than you were. And? I asked, heartbeat picking up. He reached out and traced the edge of my jaw with his knuckle. Light, slow, like he was still deciding whether he could. And I didn't. I didn't know what to do with that moment, with his hand barely grazing my jaw, with the quiet intensity in his eyes, with the way the room suddenly felt smaller, like the walls were closing in, not in a bad way, but in the way your heart does when something finally clicks. I didn't move. I didn't lean into his hand. I didn't pull away either. I just looked at him. "You're serious?" I said. He didn't smile, didn't crack a joke, just nodded once. "I didn't think I'd get a second shot with you." "But we never even had a first shot," I whispered. He sat up slowly, the mattress dipping under his weight. "Yeah, but I used to imagine what would have happened if we'd stayed friends. If I hadn't disappeared. If we'd gone to the same high school. Maybe the same college." "That's a lot of ifs." "I know." He paused. "But I'm not making this up now. You still make me nervous. You still make me want to say dumb things just to see you laugh." I swallowed hard. "You've been doing a great job of that so far." He chuckled softly, the tension loosening just enough for me to breathe again. "Why me?" I asked. Luca frowned. "What do you mean?" "There's got to be 100 other guys in this city. Better looking, cooler, less spreadsheet obsessed." He leaned forward again, this time closing the space between us. "You really don't see it, do you?" "See what?" "You have this quiet way of making people feel seen. You did it back then, and you're still doing it now." His voice dropped a little, like he wasn't used to saying this out loud. "You don't fake interest. You listen. You remember." I stared at him. "You remembered me," I said, "even after all those years." "Of course I did," he said. "You were the first boy I ever had a crush on." That pulled something out of me I hadn't expected. A heat in my chest, a weird kind of ache. "And now?" I asked. He blinked, then gave me that crooked smile again. "Now I'm just trying to work up the nerve to kiss you." That shut my brain off completely. I could have said something clever. I could have asked a dozen questions. But instead, I just leaned in, heart hammering, breath short, and kissed him. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a movie scene. It was soft, familiar, like remembering a song you used to love. His lips moved with mine, slowly, almost cautiously, like he was still checking to make sure this was real. His hand rested on my chest, fingers curling slightly into my shirt. And I swear, for a second, everything just stopped. When we finally pulled back, neither of us said anything right away. Then he whispered, "I've wanted to do that for 10 years. I smiled. "You could have just written it on the coffee cup," he laughed, low and warm. "Where's the fun in that?" We sat there for a while, tangled up in a silence that felt nothing like the ones before. We didn't talk about what it meant. Not right away. We lay on his mattress, side by side, fingers barely touching. The window above his bed was cracked just enough to let the sound of the city bleed in. Distant sirens, wind rustling through whatever few trees were brave enough to survive here. "I don't know what this is," I admitted after a while, staring at the ceiling. "Me neither," Luca said, "but I like it." I turned my head toward him. "You sure this isn't just a nostalgia thing? Like, maybe we're just trying to relive something that never really happened?" He rolled onto his side, propped up on one elbow. "Okay, maybe a little, but that kiss didn't feel like nostalgia to me." "No?" "No," he said softly. "It felt like something I've been waiting to finish since I was 13. I laughed, more to keep myself from feeling everything all at once. "You were this brave at 13. "God, no," he said. "I couldn't even ask for extra ketchup back then." The laughter faded, but the warmth didn't. He reached over, letting his hand rest against my ribs. Not possessive, not rushed, just there, like an anchor. "I'm not expecting anything," he said after a long pause. "You don't have to label this, or figure it out tonight. I wanted you to know I see you. Still." It hit me in a place I didn't know needed hitting. I didn't realize how good it could feel, to be seen by someone who remembered an old version of you and still wanted the current one. Eventually, I had to go. The night was getting late, and Monday loomed. He walked me to the door, hoodie sleeves pulled over his hands. We stood there awkwardly, the way you do when you're trying not to ask, "So, when can I see you again?" "I'll come by the cafe tomorrow," I said, already knowing I would have anyway. He nodded. "I'll make your cold brew extra good." "You already do," I said, smirking. "But you could try putting your number on the cup next time." He stepped closer, resting his forehead lightly against mine. "You sure?" "I'm sure," I said. And just like that, he kissed me again. Slower this time, less about timing and more about promise. When I got home, I set the empty coffee cup on my desk. I stared at the spot where he'd written, "See you tomorrow." And suddenly, tomorrow couldn't come fast enough. The next morning, I got to the cafe earlier than usual. Again, I couldn't help myself. Luca was already there, apron tied, curls slightly damp like he'd just showered. When our eyes met, he didn't smile right away. Instead, he gave me this look. Soft, steady, like he already knew everything I was about to say and didn't need to hear it to believe it. I stepped up to the counter, heart ticking faster. "Hey," I said. "Hey," he replied. Without another word, he reached for a cup and started making my drink. The whole process felt different this time. Calmer, like we'd peeled something back and now we were just here. He slid the drink across the counter with a quiet, "This one's actually on the house." I picked it up, eyes immediately scanning the side. This time, under my name, he'd written a phone number, and beneath it, in smaller, messier writing, "This time, I won't disappear." I swallowed a smile so big, it nearly hurt. "You busy after your shift?" I asked. He shook his head. "Not if you're around." "I'm around." He reached across the counter, and for a second, his fingers brushed mine. Not by accident. We didn't need to say much after that. The day went on. I went to work. He texted me during lunch, a picture of a crooked sandwich he'd made with the caption, "Chef's kiss, literally." I sent back an emoji of someone vomiting. By the end of the week, we had a rhythm. And by the end of the month, he was spending nights at my place, drinking half my almond milk, leaving sketches on my coffee table, and kissing me good morning before either of us were fully awake. It wasn't perfect. There were mornings we annoyed each other. Times he got quiet and didn't want to talk about his past. Times I second-guessed whether we were going too fast. But then there'd be these moments. Him curled up next to me on the couch, humming while he read something dumb off Reddit. Or the way he'd randomly reach for my hand when we crossed the street. The way he'd whisper, "Hey," like it was a secret only I got to hear. One night, a few weeks in, I asked, "Did you really come back to this neighborhood, just hoping to run into me?" He shrugged. "I came back hoping for a lot of things. You were one of them." I kissed him. Again. And again. Because some people, you forget. And some people, they come back into your life 10 years later, holding a Sharpie, a coffee cup, and a smile you didn't know you'd been missing.